Thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you this afternoon. This is going to be a little bit of a change of pace because my assignment is to describe a piece of legislation in the United States Congress, and so my part might not be on quite the lofty inspirational level that you've heard from my colleagues on the panel, but I'm going to try to describe to you and explain to you something called the Senator Paul Simon Study Abroad Foundation Act, which has now twice passed the House of Representatives in this Congress and the last one, and is again pending in the Senate. And to give sort of the 30-second version of a very long history, this bill is a product of about a decade of work by many organizations, including my own. It was inspired by the vision of the late Senator Paul Simon. And all of these ideas and Senator Simon's vision were brought together a few years ago in a federal commission, a congressionally established commission that was chaired by Peter McPherson, who currently heads the Public and Land Grant College Association, but at the time had recently retired as president of Michigan State University. And that commission's recommendations are the basis for the Simon bill. Now, in very brief form, the bill identifies international and intercultural and language learning, foreign language learning, as critical national needs. And the bill sets forth three objectives for our country to speak to these needs. First of all, that in 10 years' time, 1 million undergraduates would be studying abroad annually for credit. That's about 4 times the current number. Secondly, that the study abroad population would be reflective of the overall undergraduate student population. That is to say, people at all kinds of socioeconomic levels could do this. People from all kinds of schools could do this. People from all kinds of majors could do this. And third, that a much greater proportion of study abroad than currently is the case would take place in what the bill refers to as non-traditional locations, a rough translation for which is developing countries. Now, this bill then goes on to rest on an understanding of a very important factor, which is that the key barrier to study abroad today is not money, important though it may be, but rather the key barrier is the institutional barriers and disincentives that reside at the level of the university. Curricular rigidities, lack of leadership by the university, leadership on behalf of study abroad, faculty resistance to study abroad, non-availability of affordable programs, non-availability of programs that can be accessed by non-traditional students. You can run through a whole list of reasons why a lot of people enter university expecting to study abroad, but not all that many people end up doing it. So the bill then seeks to address the key policy question here in this area, which is how do you use federal policy to leverage change in universities and colleges to remove those barriers. And what the bill does is it sets up an institutional grant competition under which, and it sets up an independent government foundation to administer this grant competition. Because that's what foundations do. They know how to use grants to leverage institutional change, which is what this program is about. So under this bill, colleges and universities, either individually or in consortium, would apply for grants to enable their students to study abroad. When they get the grants would have to be passed through to the students. So they end up in the hands of the students, but the schools can't access the money unless they commit to undertake reforms in their own institution, which will lower, or reduce, or eliminate the barriers to study abroad at that institution. They have to commit to take actions that will grow their numbers in keeping with the objectives of the legislation. And they have to commit to specific steps that they would have to, in order to get the successive tranches of the money, that they would have to actually meet. Now, what this means is you get a lot more study abroad than you pay for with this model, because the mere lowering of the barriers will itself produce study abroad independently of the money. And that's how you can grow the numbers to such a large extent at a fraction, a tiny fraction of the cost of a direct scholarship program. So the bills, the commission that I referred to at the beginning of my remarks, chaired by Peter McPherson, had recommended that this program be funded at an average of about $100 million a year over 10 years. The number we've actually got in the bills now is $80 million. That's the authorization number, with smaller startup costs. But when you think about that piddling little amount of money leveraging 1 million students abroad in 10 years' time, you see how cost-effective this model is. Also, by the way, I'll just mention parenthetically that it really isn't a scholarship program. It is a program for reforming the way universities educate their students, literally, and for helping turn universities into, to use a phrase that's been used at this table already, truly world universities, and to help produce truly global citizens. And I believe that if we can get this bill enacted and funded and appropriately administered, it's going to change this country. So my prediction is that if we can get this done, the market for partnerships between international volunteer service organizations and universities providing study abroad is going to literally explode. And I hope that over the course of these next couple of days, you'll be exploring the modalities of how that partnership might play out and how to move forward in this area. The legislation provides that not only schools but also consortia of schools can apply for grants, and that those consortia may also include organizations other than universities that are study abroad providers. And study abroad is defined in the legislation to include service learning, and therefore it seems quite clear to me that organizations providing service learning opportunities abroad could in fact form into consortia with schools to apply for grants. And I would hope that that would happen if this program plays out. Finally, I have to mention the obvious thing, and I think one of the questions we're supposed to address are what are the upcoming decisive turning points in these movements that we're talking about. Well, for any of this to happen, we have to pass the bill. And the bill is now before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and we need to get it through there and to the Senate floor. And passing anything like of this significance is always an uphill fight in the Congress. So if you or your organizations are constituents of anybody on the Foreign Relations Committee, now would be the time to let them know that a bill structured like this is important to you because it will leverage huge international volunteer service opportunities. And then if we can get through that stage, we'll be asking you to help us with the real big problem, which is getting this bill or any other bill virtually these days to the floor of the United States Senate for a vote. So I'm very excited about this. I hope you are too, and I think the potential is here for extremely powerful partnerships between the volunteer service community and the study abroad community as we play this out. Thank you very much.